Well, the Halloween countdown is over, but we celebrate horror all year round here at ML Miller Frights. So I have a lot to catch up to do with all of these new releases, starting with the biggest sequel of the season, Black Phone 2. Let's see if I connect with this one or not. A Nightmare on Elm Street 10, Black Phone 2, is in theaters now from Universal Pictures and BlumHouse. It's directed by Scott Derrickson and written by C. Robert Cargill, Scott Derrickson, from a short story by Joe Hill. Set a few years after Finn, played by Timu Brad Renfro, aka Mason Thames, escaped from the clutches of the Grabber, played by Ethan Hawke, he's still trying to deal with the trauma of his abduction, which ended in the gruesome death of the Grabber. Now 17, Finn is still having nightmares, gets calls from the dead which he ignores, and tries to block it all out with weed. His sister Gwen, played by Madeline McGraw, aided in Finn's rescue with her own parapsychic powers, and is now having dreams where she's in contact with her dead mother, Hope, played by Final Destination Bloodlines' Anna Lore, and 3 dead children who seem to be the first victims of the Grabber. Both Finn and Gwen are led to a Christian youth camp in the Colorado mountains where a mysterious broken phone booth provides a main line to the Grabber from hell. The first hour of Black Phone 2 tries really hard to justify why there is a sequel in the first place. And it's with this type of motivation that Derrickson and Cargill do their best work on the film. They do a good job of refreshing the audience with the horrors Finn endured and how he's trying to cope with it, all the while elevating Gwen's role and developing her character. In doing so, this Black Phone world is fleshed out and made all the more dangerous. They intermix the drama with some really solid scares and atmospheric moments. One stylistic choice that was used in this filmmaking duo's previous film, Sinister, is the implementation of Super 8 camera stock paired with the whirring of the camera itself is also used in Black Phone 2 to indicate that those scenes are occurring in a dream. While this isn't a new technique, it's an effective one to help distinguish between Gwen's dream world and the waking one. During these scenes, the details of the setting is softened and the lights are blown out, making the edges of the scene fuzzy as if you're really attempting to focus in the midst of a dream. Black Phone 2 still bathes in that retro wave of the 80s, though it's not as prevalent here as the first one. We get some 80s style clothes and Night Flight playing obscure 80s videos, but basically this is the way for the film to exist in a time before cell phones came along and saved everything. Derrickson really knocks the atmosphere out of the park in the first hour, with the chilly outside filled with tremendous winds and flurries, contrasted with the insides of the cabins, which are lit with warm red heaters with almost neon zigzag lines. We're no longer in that horrible basement from the first one, but the setting factors in greatly into the story, making you pull up your collar in some of the outdoor scenes. Unfortunately, that's where the problems begin. I noticed this about halfway through Black Phone 2. For a film set in the cold mountains of Colorado with snowdrifts, high winds, and lakes frozen solid, no one is cold in this movie. These kids run around without hats and coats. There's barely a shiver or frosty breath seen by anyone in the cast. Hell, one kid runs around in her socks the whole time. I know that Colorado cold is much worse than the Chicago cold I endure every year, but cold is fucking cold. And one would think, with snow and ice being much more of a factor in this movie, the reaction to that cold would have been highlighted a bit more. Hell, Jeremy Davies falls through the ice in one scene and then just shakes it off and isn't seen until much later, and it seems like he's still wet and just standing around in sopping clothes, dripping, during the nighttime, in foot-deep snow. But where Black Phone really skids to a screeching halt is the halfway point, right after the group at the children's camp witnessed Gwen's battle with the Grabber, where she's flying around the room in her sleep, a la Tina's death in A Nightmare on Elm Street. The entire group gather in a lodge to discuss what is happening and basically catch everyone up on who everyone is, what's going on, and what they need to do next. It's an exposition dump the likes I have not seen in ages, and something Cargill, as a former reviewer from Ain't It Cool News back in the day, would have pointed out as writing blasphemy. There had to be some way for this information to have been communicated via action, not lecturing us via dialogue. On top of that, some mighty leaps in logic are made from Gwen's character who, through her budding psychic powers and vague dreams, is somehow able to piece together not only the grabber's motivations, but his weaknesses as well. These conclusions are leapt to, and because the plot needs it to be true, it's downright accurate. But it also leads me to question why the grabber leads Finn and Gwen to the camp when it's the same place that holds the seeds to his weakness. But I guess we aren't supposed to ask those questions. Black Phone 2 then goes a bit with some more frosty spookiness and almost gets its groove back, only to once again slam on the momentum brakes again at the hour-and-a-half mark, so Finn, Gwen, and their father, played by the ever-amazing Jeremy Davies, stand in the cold and have a heartfelt moment that I guess is to once again repeat the recap to Davies for the cheap seats in the theater, or for the couple who entered the movie theater I saw it in at the hour and 15 mark, obviously taking in a second or third feature at the theater that afternoon. Again, this second exposition dump could have been factored in through action, or better yet, not included at all, as with The Shining, which is one of the many films Black Phone 2 borrows heavily from, where the plow truck comes in late in the movie, only for the driver to be killed, upping the stakes 11-fold. But that doesn't happen, and I guess we're getting into spoilers here, so beware. But no one, other than the kids who are killed in the past and the grabber himself, is actually killed in Black Phone 2. The climax has the entire cast gathering together on the icy lake to confront the grabber, both in the dream world and the really real one. The script tries to give all of them something to do, but as the action goes on, most of them are simply standing around while Finn and Gwen take on the grabber. There's literally a scene where one kid, played by Miguel Mora, who apparently was played by the same kid in the first Black Phone and is now playing his brother in this one, simply is watching the action going down while sitting next to a sleeping Gwen. Meanwhile, Gwen is thrashing around in her sleep, and Finn is fighting an invisible enemy on the ice, and this dude is just sitting there. Some of these stand-arounders needed to be killed off, and this problem wouldn't have been so prevalent. The focus in Black Phone 2 is all over the place. I understand expanding the roles of those who survived the first one, but this should have been a story about Finn overcoming his trauma, or at least finding a way to deal with it in a positive way. There is a section of the film where he gets a fatherly lecture from Damien Bashir, who is in this cast simply to add some gravitas, and maybe as a cast member who actually remembers the 80s, and then the second exposition drop confronts Finn's attempts to cover up his problems, but for the most part, this plot is pushed aside in the second half in favor of Gwen's story, where she comes to grips with her new powers and has some closure with her mother. As with the large amount of characters surviving, leading to a crowded climax, the plot is overcrowded with two focuses going on their own directions and never really meeting. So who's to blame for this mess? Not Derrickson and Cargill. Both have gone on record saying that they really didn't want to do a second Black Phone movie. But after a suggestion from Joe Hill, and I'm sure a backed up cash truck from BlumHouse, they decided to give it a go. The result is one solid hour of good in a 2-hour movie. Nope, I blame BlumHouse. What was once a promising company producing cutting-edge horror is now sharding schlock with the dullest of blades. I've come to the conclusion that BlumHouse is the go-to production house for people who haven't seen a lot of horror movies. Sure, there are elements of good stuff here, but all of them have been done before in better movies. In a good movie, it's called homage. In a movie like this, it just feels like they couldn't think of something original. Black Phone 2 is a stew made of uncooked and unblended parts of A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Shining with the snowy setting and one scene with blood pouring out of the tree stump profusely, Curtains as it swipes directly from the ice skating killer sequence, The Sixth Sense with all the seeing of the dead people, all set at Crystal Lake in the wintertime. It's that derivative. The whole film feels like an audition tape for Derrickson and Cargill to be the frontrunners in a new A Nightmare on Elm Street redux. Out of all the cinematic swipes and lifts, Black Phone fills its pockets with entire scenes from the Elm Street series. But BlumHouse counts on the fact that those who go to the theaters haven't seen these ancient movies like Elm Street, or Curtains, or The Sixth Sense, or The Shining. In the end, the Black Phone 2 feels like an unnecessary sequel to be kind, and rushed and sloppy to be more accurate. Sure, Hawk is great as the grabber, and I admire that he doesn't have the ego to force a face reveal every 5 minutes. Back in the days of oldie olden times, masked monsters kept their makeup on. Karloff's monster and Mummy, Lugosi's Dracula, even Hodder's Jason, or for the most part, England's Freddy, owned their monstrous roles and kept the makeup on. Can you imagine Lon Chaney Sr. picking off his makeup in Phantom of the Opera like Downey and Holland demask every 5 minutes in the Marvel films? So good on Hawk for owning the role and making it iconic without his sparkly face showing. Still, the movie around Hawke's performance is flawed enormously. If there is a Black Phone 3, I hope more time is put into the script and less time is spent explaining it and swiping elements from the classics. I feel like I was hard on this movie, but I think it deserves it, as I liked the original quite a bit. But aside from a promising first hour of setup, Black Phone 2 was a huge letdown. Black Phone 2's been out for a minute. Have you had a chance to go check it out? If so, what do you think? Or why didn't you go see it in the theaters? Let me know down in the comments. Please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're